called potable water divers. And what these gentlemen do is they will actually, with a team, because too often sometimes there are small rodents and birds and things that have found their way in, and they will actually vacuum them out. And it's not something you think about, but you know, you take your water bottle and put it on the counter and leave it for 6 months, and then take it. You know, we're very conscious of that in the way we deal with our personal end of things. In terms of the plumbing in Walkerton, when they started to rip up the pipes, again, something else that we don't think about until you do it, they found that the pipes, where they take, it looks like a missile from World War II, from a battleship, put it into that pipe, and then a supernatural event that's happening in this particular building causing this problem. So what about when your community goes in, built in the 60s, anybody drive a car from the 60s, they're falling apart. $500 million of permit, and with how we manage our infrastructure is have these discussions with the public and say, look, this is the reality of it. Have you done nothing to your house in 30 years? If you haven't, you probably need a new roof, you need this. Walkerton today uses UV for our, we still chlorinate to keep the pipes and the distribution system adequate, but if you see the way this ditching is come, and there's not really a chart, a comparison chart showing the relative vulnerability, because their idea was, we want water, you'll drill us a well. Why was this well here? Not just for the soft water, but they already owned the land. You know, when you think about where you place something, you know, let's see, the room is full, we have a new baby, where are we going to put the baby? Oh, the fire escape, we'll put him out there. You know, how do we judge that, and what are we bringing into that discussion piece as we move forward? So I think that that's really, really important, but the work of the source protection committees is in some cases seen as an imposition, where we're saying, well, we're going to restrict what you do and our land prices are going to drop, that sort of thing, but we're not looking at the big picture. Part of Brockton towards Hanover, where we have a region of little lakes, we have a bylaw now suggesting that thou shalt not fertilize the lawn that runs directly downhill towards our wonderful little lake, because we're getting these nasty algae blooms. And the response that you get to that precautionary approach is twofold. Some people say, you know, that makes really good sense. This is our home, this is the lake that we cherish for recreation. Trying to estimate the amount of time that contaminants would take to get, say, from this farm to here. The actual test that they did, which was a physical test, where they put a fluorescing dye into our water. They actually had dyed Silver Creek accidentally emerald green for about a day and a half. But what they found was that it was much, much more rapid than they thought. It was on the order of maybe 100 times faster in terms of the movement of contaminants. Silver Creek, which you remember as we were looking over the park and there was a little creek winding its way through by the pool, they put some fluorescing dye in there, and they found the amount of time that it would take to travel to the well on the farm just past this one was 3 hours. So think about that in terms of the life cycle of a bacteria. If I tell you it's going to take 1.5 years to get there, then you're thinking, well, if that bacteria doesn't have a food source, not much is going to make its way to my water. But if you're looking at a body of water that's flowing through a town and it can make its way into your wells in 3 hours, rigor there, that goes without saying. But look at what your community's priorities are. They created that template, and as a result of that scoring, we are where we are today. And Colin, how long have you worked today?
2006. Coming in and what we're, which I agree with. I like to see them and what we're going to have to do in the future. And at any point in time, if you have a question, just ask it. So ask it then, so you remember it. We can go through it. Any questions? No problems. It'll be just fine. So we'll start, tour through some of the buildings. We're not going to go through every building, but we'll tour through some concept type of thing. There's a bylaw in town where they cannot put in the sanitary system. It'll cost money to go into the team. We do get, to give an example of that, a certificate of approval of this plan is for 7,550 cubic meters a day. We can do around the tree. We can max out at 18,000. The idea of that is every town has infiltration. So there's certain days you're going to max out in the spring flood. It's going to be high. Typically, an average flow here in a day is about 2,500 cubic meters. So we're a third of what this plant will handle. There's only once in 7 years I've been here where we're up to 17,000. So we were up.
So you never bypass it?
No, they've never bypassed. But there are a lot of... It will. It does bypass it. It's Group L on the west side pump station.
used to bypassing the creek a lot of time. If we got that improved, or that we pipe coming through the plant, Owen Sound is still actually a primary treatment plant, meaning they take a very little reduction of solids. When you see the effluent that goes into the Owen Sound Bay, it's not great. They are improved, but it costs money.
It's not hitting the fan, but it's still.
Yes. It's
$10 million upgrade.
well, the whole thing is 30, 40 million. By the time you're done, 40 million.
10 from us.
Yeah, it's a lot of money to do that.
Colin, what's the approximate value of the sewage treatment plant?
To replace this plant, we went on similar to what Mount Forest did. Replace theirs, and it was 45 million.
So when you
Free to replace the whole thing. It would be different. This is a conventional plant. We wouldn't do the same stuff. The tertiary treatment problem.
But when you think of that in terms of municipal budgets of a town of 5,000, we're talking about a huge, huge investment.
That's one pump. And all kinds of things. So it's very expensive. This old generator, for example, is 1969. It was installed. Made in England, we can't get parts. Parts have to be machined for it. If we've got to fix it. So with that, it is what actually pumps. If the hydro is out. The hydro goes out for any period of time, obviously effluent's still coming in the wet well, the whole downtown floor is flooded. Kind of a mess, so that cannot go down. We have a contingency to bring the generator in. The generator we have to bring in is very few in Ontario that size. So in process now, we just let out the contract to replace the generator. It's going to be $1 million. But what we're doing, I'm kind of fussy on this kind of stuff. We're not just going to have a diesel generator. It's going to run on methane gas, which we produce for our own digesters, and natural gas. We're going to run the methane carry has done the calculations. In 4 to 6 hours a day, that generator will run, and go off the grid and move inside. We're going to produce our own hydro from our own methane. Well, that costs money to do that, of course. Replace just the diesel one, like 3 or 400,000. But to do the math, you figure.
Well, I like to. It's pretty smelly, I know, but I mean.
Well, go around the other side.
Had about 37?
41, we're getting ready for winter.
41, okay.
Yeah, it's a little hard to keep the decent winter in there, so we bumped up in the summertime and then we'll keep them up to get those off.
The idea of that, everything to do with this plant is you got to keep the bugs happy. The bugs eat things that we want them to eat, and obviously when you eat, what do? You fart. So that's what they're doing with the methane. They're creating the methane gas. So we capture that. Very rarely do we burn off. We're just changing the whole setup. Part of the $1 million in that is changing our setup too for capturing gas. The secondary digester, really, the way we operate it is a basic holding tank. Really not a lot of digestion in it. And any of the methane that's created there goes straight off to our flare stack. So we don't want methane in the environment. It's fairly difficult fairly hard in the ozone. We don't like to see that. So anything methane, anything that releases here has to be flared off. So what we're doing in the project then is we're going to be confining the piping, and any gas that's captured on the secondary as well will be going through our generator set.
One of the other challenges, as we look at the larger environmental picture, the landfill, which is shared with the town of Hanover, which is actually just at the edge of the municipality, sits along the Saugeen River. So one of the concerns we have as we expand that landfill is what is leaching out of the landfill into the river and potentially into the private wells that are along the side, or any of the municipal wells that Hanover might, the pollution control plants in both of the towns as we share it. So that's a new wrinkle in treatment. Now, Colin, what we're anticipating is the first bit of leachate you'll be receiving, because there'll be very little waste in there, will be largely just water. But what are some of the concerns that you might have with leachate that you're accepting from there?
We've never treated it before. So it's a foreign substance to us. We have septics, we get brewery waste, we get the chemicals from the breweries, placing no. That will be probably forced upon any
it'll be mandated eventually.
When we start getting, let me test it, just test it. It's got any kind of chemical that's in there. Yeah, triclosans and triclocarbons is what's in there. We can't treat them.
Straight pipe to the river.
It's very difficult to treat them in a conventional plant. You have membranes at the end, you can treat it. So all the triclosans, triclocarbons that are coming through, every time you just pump them, you wash your hands and you flush her down, it goes out into the river.
What about like, so what would you say, I mean, having worked in healthcare, how does that then work, right? I mean, you need that to...
We got clean fish.
Well, one of the things we're finding
you're
Right, but then how, is there a balance between the systems?
You don't need
Freckle sand is different than we're talking about two different things. Freckle sand is an antibacterial added to some Kleenexes, some hand soap preparations. That's different than what we're...
biggest problem. It's very warm. The warmer it is, the more you have algae problems. 8 of algae blooms that were just awful 25 years ago. It's cleaned up quite a bit. So a lot of the studies you see on that type of thing are out of Lake Erie.
Yeah.
And that is, that's a fact of what's happening.
So let's not manufacture problems.
What's your ability to take out pharmaceuticals? Because I've heard some people say, oh, we can take pharmaceuticals out, but I've heard large communities say, like, you can't take your pharmaceuticals out.
Depends on the plant. Our plant, we're very limited. A conventional plant is designed, it's an excellent plant, and it works well for what it's designed for. It's not designed for pharmaceuticals, chemicals, that type of thing. Very difficult for us, and we can settle it. We can settle it out, but it's not taken out. It still has to go somewhere. It's on the sludge.
So if you then spread it back on the land, or you
It's
take it to a
on
landfill,
biosolids.
then it's returned back to the environment.
See, it's still in there.
Colin, is
bigger thing
anybody
is not-
shaking out pharmaceuticals yet? I thought that was the real big worry under the MOEs. Guys, like, they don't want us to really know how many pharmaceuticals are getting through back into fresh water.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say there isn't.
Yeah,
There's
so
a lot of the pharmaceuticals going
birth
through.
control pill and
They're
all sorts of
a great deal. We see the analysis. Look, we look at our analysis. You can go through it. Some of it's beyond me reading through it, but percentages, you got to keep it in perspective too. What short term and long term.
Yeah.
There's some pharmaceuticals in our plant go through. You get a tertiary or membrane filtration at the end of a plant. That takes a lot of it.
Does it? Pharmaceuticals?
They'll take a lot of stuff out. Pharmaceuticals are just like a size of a virus. So microscopic.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. So there's still some coming through. Absolutely.
And some of those operate on
Well,
parts per billion as opposed
I-
to parts per million.
I would doubt it all goes through. The percentage in those the better plants will take a percentage out. It's not all of them. And this is the biggest thing is, the more we use in our own healthcare, the more it's going through the system, the more it's more going out, and as it's, tadpoles and pollywogs, careful, we're starting to see mutations.
Yeah. I'm just one of them.
What's that? Is that volumizing shampoo?
That's right. Well, right in my armpits.
Okay, let's get up every clarifier, every aeration cell, everything will be operating. And it might only be let's gin the spring right off. So we might have a couple of weeks, 3 weeks. We're treating a lot of water. It's expensive. That's what we're doing. So this is the primary.
Bi-weekly, every 2 weeks. We do raw sewage monthly, and then we do our sludges, like our digester and our holding tank, quarterly, so every 3 months. Daily we do 10 milligrams a liter for E. coli, so it's actually kind of high, but we're 0. Once in a while we'll be like 20 or 25, so we're pretty much always well under. Most plants do UV to get rid of E. coli. I imagine we'll probably be the same way in a few years. Either UV or dechlorinate the water. Our pH, we have to keep our pH between 6.5 and 9, or so 6 and 9. We're generally around 8 for pH, or a little under 8. Our pH, when this plant's working good, like the aeration, the biological process actually raises our pH. We add ferric, and it's supposed to lower our pH and also get rid of phosphorus. But when the biological process, it raises it fairly high. So generally, if we're doing our job, or if the plant's doing its job, it will be a little bit higher pH, but we're never very much above 8. We're usually just right around that, or a little bit below 7, 7, 7, 7, 8, somewhere in there. This plant is actually I don't know if Colin's going on about it. This plant's like really oversized.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So I don't.
He likes to brag.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's really oversized. So that's why we have some of the tanks out of service right now. And right now we do TSS to see how much we should waste of the sludge. Disposal suspended solids of our aeration. So the more bugs, sorry, you want to keep the bugs at a certain level. If you have too many, they basically die and float out into the contact tank and settle, and this eats up our chlorine. If you have them too low, they don't do their job. But right now we're actually trying to raise our bugs. That's why we're having a bit of sludge float up in our finals. Because Tees water plant is coming online hopefully soon, and they're going to be getting seed. Yeah, they're going to get seed sludge from here to start up. To start up process. I don't know how much, but I imagine it's going to be quite a bit. That's a fair size plant.
When they pump out all the residential tanks, there's also a requirement when they put out those sanitary. Will they take it to their plant?
They will go probably either the Mile May or the Tees water plant. We generally don't haul septic. We only get septic waste from in Brockton. We don't actually. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. That could be. They could come here too. Yeah.
So how much will you be giving the Tees water plant to the seed sludge?
I would imagine a lot. An engineer will tell me. But it'll be. Imagine they won't want to they won't want to rush it. Like you only let them take maybe 3,000 to 5,000 gallons a day of seed sludge. If they do it too fast, they shock my plant, and they won't be able to get seed sludge right.
So this is an organ transplant of sorts from one
plant.
I'm just hoping the headline doesn't read that Brocker, you can be in Teeswater, within a half an hour sort of thing.
Yeah.
Imagine if somebody said you now have to jump on a plane and fly to Northern Ontario, and one of the difficulties they have with training is that those gentlemen that are there, they may be the only guy in their community that runs that plant or has any knowledge of it, and he wants to go away and take a 3-day training course. It's almost impossible to really justify, plus the cost is huge. For you to go to the Walkerton Clean Water Centre and take a course is maybe not going to break the bank in terms of our travel budget or that.
We would have one field certified right now. We can basically the soil test the fields to see the metal content and if we can apply there and what we can apply there. Then we have to do so many. It's based on a yearly average of such holding tank metals, ammonia, E. coli, phosphorus, potassium, all that kind of stuff, to make sure that they're within reasonable limits. Yeah, MOE sets them, yeah. And so does OMAPRA. We would have one field certified right now. We can basically the soil test the fields to see the metal content and if we can apply there and what we can apply there. Then we have to do so many. It's based on a yearly average of such holding tank metals, ammonia, E. coli, phosphorus, potassium, all that kind of stuff, to make sure that they're within reasonable limits. Yeah, MOE sets them, yeah. And so does OMAPRA.
Next to our wells in the catchment zones, right?
They have an area map of the fields. The fields are marked so far from the ditches, so far from the water course. It's like 90 meters from the water course. Wetlands, yeah.
He's 10 years old.
Yeah, 15 meters from the ditches, like the rural ditches. So I forget, it's like 110 from the well.
Yeah.
I'd have to really read up on this.
But, it's not really your end of the business, but you're aware of it.
Yeah. Well, we mark the fields. We do mark the fields, but basically you pull it out, and when you're doing it, make sure everything's right. You don't go off and on that stuff, because if you do, you might forget something. Right?
So if you look at the danger of that, that can get back into your source water. In Finland, in the past, I don't know if I'm going to get this exactly right, I think it was within the last 5 years, they had an incident where people were made terribly sick because of a cross connection from a sewer leading directly, not directly into, but funneling that water into an area too close to an intake was taken.
Our aquifer for well 79 is big. It goes all the way into...
it's a nitrate, so that
nitrate.
More nitrate.
You'd be making some decisions about granting for those upgrades And as I say, it's not just helping the broader community, but it's probably helping that landowner in so much as they're protecting their own water.
As you head out to the well by John Deere, the septic that was just replaced under that program.
Yeah.
So that's going to help remove some of the E. coli and nitrates as well.
They call it the early action program. I wanted to call it give a shit about where you shit, but they decided to go with the more conventional
So
title.
that'll end at the end of this year.
Yeah.
So there was 130,000 that was carried over, and then we're hoping to spend that by the end of this year. And Teeswater coming online is a good example because they get funds to help connect to the sanitary sewer from their property, and they also get funds to help the pollution septic system. They're paying a portion of that.
So Teeswater never treated sort for themselves.
With all septics, yeah.
The entire time.
Yeah. That's true of a lot of small towns, and they have decisions. I think Formosa's now getting a system.
We'll be piped to the Teeswater.
Yeah. And that's just sewer, though. They'll still be on wells?
Yeah, they'll still be on wells.
Yeah. And sometimes communities have that choice to make. Do you go with, do you protect your drinking water by piping it to your house, or do you go with the sewers? There was a pilot project in PEI where they said to a community, look, we've had some incidents with contaminated water, and what happens is everybody's on septic. Some people take really...
Standing by before, which is called mixed liquor suspended solid. Comes in there, and this is it's a settling tank. So it comes outside, solids settle down, they're sent back to the headworks where the primaries are. That's reseeding for the aerobic section is what it's doing. And supernatant comes back here, off here, and heads on to our fine contact tank. Supernatant. This is what comes off the top. So that is what's actually going to be going up to the river. Yep. All you see is the top. Yep. That's what goes to the river. You can see, you can get a good look at the tank on that side, how deep it is.
So I think we better corral to the bus and head on up.
Demonstration facility. It will bring us to the and bring us to noon. Is it okay, Bruce?
Yes.
Okay. Devendra, could you introduce yourself to the group?
My name is Devendra Bodikar, and I'm here for about more than 8 years now. And Soleman and myself were the main person who set up this technical nutrition facility. So I work as a lead technical nutrition under Dr. Soleman.
And Laura, we have another technician that we have to do as well. So welcome to the Wopaton Clean Water Center. I hope that you are enjoying your program so far. The Wopaton Clean Water Center was established in 2004. We have the regulation that established the center in 2004. We opened in 2005 and started delivery in November 2005, December 2005. In 2006, we opened a temporary technology demonstration facility. The one you will be visiting today is a permanent one, but half of this equipment was housed before in a warehouse as a temporary facility. We moved in this permanent facility in 2020. This is a LEED certified gold building. LEED is leadership in environment and energy design because it has several environment friendly features. We use sorry about that. The back button is advancing. Just to advance, not back. I may be using. Okay. We use ground source heat pump geothermal energy as heat system. We use rainwater. Rainwater is used to flush the toilet, and we recycle the water we use in our system for irrigation. We also have solar panels fitted domestic water. We have a kiosk, electronic kiosk in the hallway. You can play with that to see all those features if you have few minutes after the program. Our mission is to safeguard drinking water for the people of Ontario as a leading center for high-quality training, applied research, and technology demonstration. This is our role. Most of the time when I go somewhere, I say, oh, I work at the Clean Water Center. People think that we are running the water system. We are not running the water system. We provide training to drinking water operators in Ontario. We do research as well and technology demonstration. So we have three departments here. We have a research institute, research and technology institute for research. We have a training institute for training, and we have a department of management services to support the two operational units. Our mandate, our core mandate is to provide training to operators, operating authorities of drinking water system. Also, we assess the gaps in drinking water research, and we advise the Ministry of Environment. We sponsor research as well. So we fund as researchers from universities, mainly. In our program, we have a special way the other unit is in the parking lot. You may see the trailer in the parking lot. Hands-on training. Water operators are technicians. They want something practical. So we focus on incorporating more hands-on training into our program. Also, we have specialized hands-on training for operators, post-secondary students, and First Nation. We developed here a 3-day course for collectives, post-secondary for collectives. And last year, or a couple of years ago, we trained more than 17 sessions here. Nora here in the back is one of them. Training priority, training advisory committee. This is a group of drinking water experts from the industry. They volunteer their time to assist the center in determining training priorities. They meet three times every year, and this group helps when we prepare the annual training plan. So they are volunteer, they are not permanent employee of the center. The other priorities are quality training, this quality assurance program. We have a quality assurance program.
So that's where our water comes from. Out here you can see too, we have an outdoor distribution. So you are tapping into the water mains, you can get the pressure kickback. It's not going to be as much pressure as would be on a regular water main, but it definitely gives you some insight on what it's going to be like. Coagulant together. The coagulant binds to particles in the water and they all stick together, so they're bigger. So then in the next treatment section, normally you would have sedimentation and everything would float to the bottom. This plant was specially designed though to push dissolved air bubbles up through the bottom, and it makes all of that particulate and like sludge float to the top. So we actually get a blanket on top that I think looks like the inside of an Aero chocolate bar or toasted marshmallow. When it builds up enough, it's skimmed off the surface and then it goes on to the filters to filter it further.
So that's your flock bed that would be on the top of that? Or?
Yeah, like instead of it all sinking to the bottom, this one works really well for waters that have a lot of algae in them because algae likes to float. It's not going to want to sink to the bottom. So if you want to separate it, you're going to need something a little more sophisticated. But right now we don't deal with any of the micro stuff. We send out all of our like E. coli samples and things like that because you need a... So that's the way this one works on the negative pressure. You can't really see too clearly into it right now just because it's got soggy, but basically they're big bundles of like, there's a lot of strands in here, probably like 100,000 strands running across. So, yeah.
So what application would that be for a community then?
Funny smell or has a funny color, so these are mostly small systems, equipment. So you'd see them more on like campgrounds, your own. And then we have the sedimentation tank in this one. So in this one, we do want everything to settle out, get caught in the plate settler and settle into the... It opens up a lot more options because we have two the exact same, so we can see how it will affect it. Instead of having to shut it down, start over, and run types of media. So in the first one here, we have macrolite ceramic sand. That one's once again to remove iron and manganese. In the second one, we have GAC and sand. So the GAC is granular activated carbon. So it's some black carbon in the top, and you can see the sand in the bottom. And then the last one here, we have anthracite and sand. Once it spills over the weir into this side, we chlorinate it, and then it has a baffle so that it makes sure that it reaches the correct contact time so that it kills everything before it gets exited out of the plant into the distribution.
So one of the stored, so we still have the package of bacteria.
All the 500s for their wastewater that they treat on site, and so a residual coming out. So you have to once again put chlorine in it to put it in the distribution system. So we actually generate our ozone on a huge metal thing that we have here is our ozone destruct system. So if there was any ozone, it's heavier than a catalyst that breaks it up and puts it outside. So you can see even just the purchase of the unit, you have to also buy all of these other things to make sure that it's safe for people working there. So bacteria as well. So without using any chemicals whatsoever, it works almost as well, I'd say, as the whole conventional system. These ones are really good for working up north where it's hard to get.
Schmoozdecke. Could you all manage Schmoozdecke?
That's a trivia question. I've shown that one.
Yeah. I should.
So far it's been really interesting. Today, I guess what I learned about, which was very interesting, was, and which I didn't know about in the past, was the flood mitigation strategies in Washington. So I thought that was really interesting, the tour that we did with Joanne, how she explained everything about the mapping and all the dikes and stuff. I just thought it was really interesting. I never would have thought that Tim Hortons needed to protect itself against floods and stuff. So.
Floods of people.
Floods of people and water. So no, it's just interesting because I never would have thought about it. So
just to interrupt because I didn't get to go with you today. Are you grabbing a lot of your mapping stuff digitally?
Ours is digital, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And like, is there? I'd love to hear about, like how people tap it, access it, and like, kind of where you're building on. Because in Toronto, we get so much interest from people around like, how do you? And it was part of our dinner conversation as well tonight. Is how do you get very interesting, relevant data to kind of come alive, especially for young people, through mobile devices and stuff like that. So like the big thing is like the information has to be digitized.
Yeah, so a lot of the information we have is digitized, but it depends on what the need is. So Bruce County itself has an interactive map website you can go to. You click on the property and get the ortho photos, you can get contours and whatnot. So that's where we would kind of direct people first and foremost if that's what you're looking for. The type of mapping that I was showing today in terms of our ortho photos and the floodplain mapping, which is also digital, would kind of be on request. So it's one of those things, our website doesn't have the capabilities to link into and that, so it's more of a, if you have an interest or a request for a project or proposal, then we would talk about that. And we do the data sharing agreements with M&R and the Leo's warehouse, and so that's where we acquire a lot of our information, which is also available things like in the public, really, I suppose, if you can get to it. So yeah, it's more of a request for information for specific properties and that. So you can imagine the size of some of them would be really huge.
Oh,
so, and we shared with the municipality of Brockton, so they have access to our floodplain mapping for the municipality and that. So what we saw today is available in some form.
Okay, cool. I was just asking because I missed it. And have you guys ever thought about having a hackathon if you can get people to share data?
I don't know what a hackathon is. So.
Okay, we'll chat afterwards. I don't want to. Sure. I don't mean we'll talk afterwards. I just mean anyway. I feel like I want everybody to.
Hackathon is when the Leafs play hockey.
Are the Leafs playing tonight?
They could well be.
Yes.
And we have no team. Just have to assume.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm Bruce Davidson. I think I've met just about everybody, and again, it's just my pleasure to be part of pulling together a really good group to look at water issues and to look at some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that are out there for us. And what I've always felt is if you are organizing the party, you don't ever really get to go to it. So today when we went to the sewage treatment plant, I don't know how many times we've taken classes there for things, but I'm always running around with a walkie-talkie, taking banana bread to the next group or making sure people rotate. So today I actually got to go in there and look at things, and the potential for the waste to energy component of it and the interconnection on the landfill committee. So we were kind of joking around with the plant supervisor with Colin that you know, they strain things out of the water that we flush down the toilet, and there's a whole repertoire of things, and he declined to tell you just how disgusting some of them are. They come to the landfill. Then they sit in the pile in the landfill, and rain hits it, and it all runs through. We collect that with pipes. We check the leachate that comes off that, and we're going to ship it back to him. So we have this constant connection where, you know, nothing we do ends in zero consequence. It goes back and forth, and then the septage is spread on the land, and then ends up in the water table. So just, I think, seeing people in their different roles and the interconnectedness was something I knew about in the background, but never had a chance to explore quite with the depth that we looked at it today. So, next.
Hey, I'm Chris, and I thought it was quite interesting going to the plant and just having the tour of the plant. I thought it was very interesting how, well, I guess not very interesting, it was well, I don't, like, the staff was very friendly and very knowledgeable about every question you had.
People, you know, you can't go into an active prison and necessarily film. So you could rent the space and do that. We are filming a film tonight called Environment Girls. You guys protest, we lock you up, it's just, we're just still working on it.
Yeah.